significant overkill when you do that level of research for a product like this. You have to build relationships with people before they commit to who you are and what you're doing. You're always looking to raise money to do two things: accelerate the company, buy product to fill orders. Without focus, there's no path forward.
Well, hello, welcome to Bright. I'm here with Dr. Pete, as they call him, famed entrepreneur here in Orlando. Really helps create the culture that we look for here in Orlando to help develop young entrepreneurs, older and the like. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what you've done, your past in entrepreneurship here, and not only that, where we are today and where you see it going.
Okay.
So kind of like the past, present, and then into the future.
Sure.
Sounds good?
Sounds good.
Awesome. And again, this is Bright. We're looking forward to the interview today. Thanks for coming out, by the way.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So let's kind of start from the top. Tell us about yourself, where you come from, like where you've been.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Pete McAlindon. I'm an industrial engineer by education, formal education. And it was my dissertation that actually kind of put me on the journey as an entrepreneur. I figured if you're going to do all that research and you're going to develop something, maybe there's potential beyond just an academic exercise.
Yeah.
So it started with an alternative keyboard. That was my dissertation. So I actually took two cereal bowls, flipped them upside down, and put them on joysticks so people with limited mobility or severe issues with their hands that couldn't do this on a regular keyboard could rest their hands on these domes, and then they would slide to type.
Wow, that's cool.
So on one dome you have an alphabetic layout of characters. Okay. Each one has a color to it.
Yeah.
And on this dome you have the colors. Mm-hmm. So sliding to a character group here, and then the color of the character you want to type with this hand.
So it breaks down as you move through it. So it's coordination.
Yeah, it's a coordination of the two domes that allow you to type with it. So it's a 128 character keyboard and mouse. So it'll do everything that a regular keyboard and mouse will do.
That's amazing.
Well, and again, it's developed for people with special needs and disabilities. It's not a keyboard for everyone.
Yeah.
But for folks that have prosthetic hands, carpal tunnel syndrome, severe enough arthritis, if I broke a finger or hand, it's still something you can keep working and not have to worry about losing your skill on a regular keyboard.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal. And just out of curiosity, you just said you took two cereal bowls. What inspired you to do that?
A problem that a lot of us were having in the lab I was working at in college. So we were programming all day, writing grants all day, and your fingers start to feel numb. That's the beginning of an issue called carpal tunnel syndrome.
Yeah, it happens with guitar a lot.
Well, it happens with a lot of repetitive type motions, right? I don't care if you're crocheting or using your hands a lot.
That fine motor movement.
And your hands aren't really built for highly repetitive type tasks. So that's where it started. So like any good, and I didn't know this at the time, but good entrepreneurs find issues that are severe enough to address. So if you're graduating from college and you don't have use of your hands and you need to use a computer, well, where's your career going to take you?
Yeah, that's a huge deal. So if you solve this problem and you saw this as immediately just physical pain, but there's also that social and like lifelong pain of how much is limited, especially in our modern world where we have so many things plugged into technology and computers and then now cell phones with these keys that are just microscopic.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So a lot of people, if your thumbs don't work well, you can use your cell phone with your index finger, but all of the desktop applications, anytime you want to use a full-size computer, the keyboard, it's typically more efficient for most than a cell phone would be.
Okay, and out of curiosity, still kind of in the weeds about like how the tech works, do you still use it like a mouse?
Yeah, so if you slide one of the domes into one of it's
one of the
positions,
options.
it's one of the options.
Okay.
Then your left hand becomes the pointer.
Okay.
Your right hand becomes the left click and right.
No way.
Or you can reverse it. So depending on if you're left hand or right hand, yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's how you got your start.
That's where it all started.
Beginning of that, and
I needed a dissertation topic. I wanted to do something cool. I wanted to go beyond just an education.
Yeah.
Because you're going to invest 2 years of your life. Why not
make something valuable?
Yeah. And I learned, and because I had to do research on it, I knew I had to go find people that would be able to test this for me.
Yeah.
So, and I was lucky because, the academic piece really drove a lot of what I know today about entrepreneurship as being true, like start with people and the issues that they're having.
So how did you do that? Because we had talked a little bit earlier before the interview about how your customer is everything. You don't have a company without a customer.
That's exactly right.
So when you were first doing this dissertation, you realized, oh, this is an issue we have. Who else has this?
Yeah.
How did you go about finding them?
So on campus, I put an ad in the paper because that was the thing in the mid-90s,
yeah.
right?
the job
Yeah, you
boards.
can't, there's no social media, Facebook, none of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you told your friends and it got around campus and, I was paying them, I think, $4 an hour to participate, something that was okay money back then, but it wasn't, so much that it's like, I'm going to go do that no matter what.
Yeah.
So they came in and the first question I'd ask them, it's like, okay, so what is your critical need in understanding an alternative keyboard? And the folks that came in and said, I type all day and my hands are very fatigued or I feel the pain.
Right.
Those were the ones that we really wanted to understand if this alternative keyboard would actually help them.
Okay.
And then I'd run them through it's amazing because 3 times a week they would come in and test this upside down cereal bowl joystick device for typing performance and comfort and all those kinds of things.
And those are the measurements, the metrics you're using?
Yeah. And what became extremely important between sessions, like our conversation before the interview, you get to know people, right? And I would ask them, so where do you see this alternative keyboard fitting in your life or anybody else's life? Or do you think this is a product that would be useful for this type of individual? And maybe not you, but this type of individual. And it just kept going. That conversation really started to happen. So reading between the lines, it's what I call the gaps of being an entrepreneur, where you'll find the absolute right answer to what you're looking to do. Because the formal stuff, once they started the research and all that, they had a task to do. I couldn't talk to them. I didn't want to disrupt the data flow and all that stuff. But in talking to them before and after, I learned an awful lot about their needs. Got to know them as just great people. All of them helped me significantly, and they've all gone on to do great things and so on. But getting to know them, they've been great promoters of product from the very beginning.
So like the benefits were beyond just
the research, yes.
Yeah, if anything, that was just a small stepping stone as far as what they were able to bring to developing this.
Yeah, so the research was actually the smallest part. The data collection was actually the smallest part. The biggest part was getting to know the people for who they were and what their perceptions were of the product, the market, what it needed to do, what it needed to look like, and so on.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's really cool.
It was a lot of fun.
So with being able to experience that, I called it empathy, but you said it even goes beyond that. You're working hand in hand with them. This initially you started with a dissertation. How did you take that from just an academically driven pursuit to then actually capitalizing?
Yeah, actually I didn't. They did. The 40 participants in the study start asking toward the end of the study where they could buy one.
Really?
Yeah, and I thought, well, that's the right question.
That's a good question.
Now I have to, thankfully, as an industrial engineer, I understand manufacturing process. I have friends who are electrical engineers. We could probably make a few of these, but
who knows?
If I need to make more than a few of these, we're going to have to probably take it to manufacturing. And it just so happened that we needed to make more than a few, just from the study and the people that they were excited to tell about the product. So we had orders for probably, I don't remember the exact number, but at least a few hundred by the time the dissertation was done.
So in 2 years, you were mostly just testing and prototyping, right? You were each week iterating.
I had my engineering hat on, right? It's like crazy ideas, cereal bowls, joysticks. How fast can you type? What's a level of comfort? It's a keyboard that can completely eliminate finger motion and wrist motion. Well, where's all that energy being transferred? How is this different than this?
Yeah. Did you bring any like mechanical engineering for the joint parts?
So electrogoniometers were used for muscle activity around the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys were on it. That's awesome.
Well, but that was the research protocol for the dissertation.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's that kind
by
of
the way,
decision.
significant overkill when you do that level of research for a product like this, but it was a lot of data and it was just great for conversation and learning.
Yeah, I'm sure
it's
the market
fun.
Just being able to see all that, it's really cool.
It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So you took this idea from literally your customers told you before you ever thought, oh, I'm going to go sell these. They said, where are you selling these?
Yeah.
Which is a
Where
good
can I get
sign.
one? It is a good sign, and that's
Yeah.
what you look for. Because now you know who they are, the conditions they have, and what they're going to be using it for. Boy, that, as an entrepreneur, that's your gold.
Yeah, and you were
Because there's more than probably one person out there with those kinds of conditions.
exactly.
So
So something that you had mentioned before was Bootstrap, because if there's any option, if you need capital, and Bright is related to raising capital, but even before that,
yeah,
the best option, and we even advocate this, to try and bootstrap. So could you go into a little bit how that you might use that methodology of raising funds or trying to make this viable for your customers in the beginning, how you could get it to them as easily as possible?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in don't spend any money, don't waste too much of your time until you have product market fit.
Right.
Start with the market. Who has an issue that needs to be addressed? Find a solution for that that's cost effective that they're willing to pay for. So that's some time, but not much money.
No.
It's a lot of cups of coffee, it's a lot of face-to-face, and it's a lot of really understanding. You know, and I tell people I work with even today, and this is what worked for me. 5 whys get you to the core of what the issue is.
Digging down into it.
So why do you need an alternative keyboard? Well, my hands hurt. Well, why do your hands hurt? What are you doing with them? On regular keyboard. Okay, so why are your hands hurting with the regular keyboard? Because I'm typing 6 to 8 hours a day.
Right.
Well, folks that don't type, if you type a few hours a day, you're probably not going to have carpal tunnel syndrome. It varies by individual, but you start asking the why, and at the end of it, all it ever came to consistently was, I need to type because I need to use a computer. That's how I make my living. So I want to type more comfortably so I can use my hands for other things outside of just typing, and I want to make sure that I have a job at the end of the day.
Right.
Alternative keyboard equal keeping your job.
Yeah. So that's where it took you. It was
Yes.
the bedrock.
Yes.
It wasn't just the surface
And
level.
that's the value proposition.
Yeah.
Why do you want an alternative keyboard? To maybe work for the first time, to get a job for the first time, because your hands and keyboards just never got along.
Yeah.
And an alternative keyboard opened that avenue for you.
Sure.
And then certainly for folks that are pounding on a keyboard all day, and it's like, oh, you're not my friend anymore, keyboard. You got to go away. Now what do you do?
Yeah.
But I still have to live my life. I still have bills to pay. So that's where alternative keyboards come in.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So you found this bedrock, and then did you immediately go, well, we'll make it by hand? So you ended up buying the cereal bowls all off, like they go into the store, there's nothing left.
Well,
It was
that's
just gone?
really not a commercial, reliable type product.
No.
It was great for prototyping and testing, but no. I wish that was the case because that's what I would have done.
Really?
Yeah. So when bootstrapping, do not spend any money that you don't have to,
Right.
and do not go raise any money that you don't have to raise. Because everybody thinks, and I guess to a certain extent it's true, if I had $1 billion in the bank account, I could solve any problem. That's probably true.
Right.
But nobody's going to give you $1 billion for something that doesn't have some kind of market traction and some viability and so on. You've got to grow into that.
Yeah.
So bootstrapping says, keep all your money in your pocket, use it for food and the things that you're really going to need, and start developing the markets, developing a solution that somebody wants. And the minute they start paying you for it, now, if and only if you need to raise capital, you go out and do that. Because I had 150, a couple hundred orders, let's say, initially, and I had a grant from the National Science Foundation to do the research, and I needed to produce this in mass, I knew that I needed investors to go buy some steel tools, custom steel tools to make the plastics, to get the packaging done, all the rest of that stuff.
Right.
And I was successful in doing that only because I had relationships with them. I had a product that was tested. It was tested via the dissertation, the National Science Foundation, and orders in hand.
Right. And so you do this even today, but at the other side of the table.
That's right. Yep.
So you're doing the same thing where you've been in the shoes of the entrepreneurs who are now coming out of Orlando, coming out all over the world,
Yes.
where you see them trying to do the things that you had done. And when you were looking for that first investor, you knew exactly how they fit into the puzzle that
Yes.
you were trying to solve.
Yes.
And so maybe we talk a little bit about that, not only the product market fit that you're looking at from entrepreneurs nowadays, because you help fundraise or you help give capital to entrepreneurs.
Right.
But they're also looking otherwise. How
Yeah.
would you give advice for them to look for
Yeah.
the right capital?
So don't look for money first.
Well, that's
look for the relationship.
Step one, don't.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
look for the relationship
period,
first.
yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I was looking for somebody that knew how to build a successful business. And it's very much a contact sport. Investors like to stay involved. So find a local investors, find a local successful business person and say, I need your help. I'd like your thoughts on something. I need your advice. Yeah. I'm not asking you for money. I don't even know if I'm ready for that. But here's what I have. I have a technology that seems to be working. I have research that proves out it does have some efficacy. And I have 200 orders I need to fill as a start.
It's a pretty good start.
And by the way, that's zero marketing. I'm not a salesperson. I'm an engineer. That's just, so I have 200 orders to fill.
People just showed up.
well, but again,
yeah.
but you cared enough to bring them into the process early on.
Of course.
And that's what made the difference. And just like investors, if they're the right fit for you personality-wise, they're at the right stage of, they have the time to help and so on. There are so many awesome people in every community. You just have to take the time to get to know them and say, okay, so that's my situation. What would you do with 200 orders in hand? And they started asking me all the hard questions I never even thought of. Well, so what's your manufacturing cost? I have no clue. Yeah. What's it going to cost per unit to ship it? What's your retail price? What are your channels? I'm like, oh yeah, you're a business person. I get this
Speak
now.
the other side of the language.
But that's where I transitioned from being hardcore engineer, data-driven, test hypothesis to where's your market. Yeah. It's interesting. It's the same kind of research pattern, but it's in a very different context.
How so? So as far as engineering, you're usually working with the physical world.
Yeah, so I could attach something to you, right? And I could tell how many characters you were typing.
Yeah.
The business world, it's like, go research your market. I wish.
It's like, what is that? What market?
So the research principles, it's not like it's not engineering that you do. Mm-hmm. It's more of the soft skill stuff.
Right.
And again, finding what people really need, the price they're willing to pay for something, and so on.
Eventually you do quantify it, but you're right. It is, because it's people, it's not so straightforward. When you have two electrodes and you're connecting a circuit, you need it'll connect.
Yeah.
As far as people go, it's more of this gray area.
And I call it the art and the science, right? I was doing the science. Yeah. I didn't know the art part, which is building the business.
Right. So when looking to help entrepreneurs as far as giving them capital, and really not just giving, but you're partnering with them, because you're going to be sharing not only capital, but experience, knowledge.
Yeah.
How do you look and evaluate where their product market fit is?
Yeah.
And how often is it that you're disagreeing with them as far as what you think they're
constantly? I think the best relationships, you have that constant tension where you're asking each other the hard questions. Because when you stop and think about it, somebody has to ask you the hard questions. I had an investor early on that said, hey, I love what you're doing. I've heard great things. Here's some money, but I don't want to be involved. Politely say, no thanks. Because that's just not what the company's built of.
Yeah.
But when somebody came in and I built a relationship with them and they were helping with sales, marketing, HR, and we were growing, it's like, hey, you're going to need some money. It's like, yes, I need to find that. Do you have any suggestions? How much do you need? We know how much you need.
Yeah.
So keep doing what you're doing. Let's hit the next milestone. Because as long as you were dedicated and committed to it and you had those relationships, that's how the money would come in.
For sure.
And that's how we develop the relationships with our companies today. So you want to come pitch to venVelo, which is our early stage seed fund that we started here in Winter Park. Find one of us that understand what you're doing. So if you're developing an alternative keyboard or something around assistive technology, reach out to me. You can go to our website, research me, connect with me on LinkedIn, and start the conversation. Hey, I've got a crazy idea. I know you know about crazy ideas for alternative keyboards. Here's mine. What do you think?
Right.
And just over time, you start building that. And if there's something there, and that shared knowledge thing again, because people who develop keyboards for different populations, they have insight, or hopefully have insight, that will add great value to a company they're building.
Yeah, definitely. So something that's come up in the modern world is this new crowdfunding, right? And this is less of that one-to-one communication channel.
Yeah.
So there definitely comes with that challenges, but then also some benefits of new entrepreneurs trying to raise capital on their own.
Right.
Trying to keep more equity to their own, or if they do need to share equity, they can at least control that more precisely.
Right.
So as far as what we're doing with Bright, we see it as almost like three players in this we call ecosystem.
Right.
We've got the entrepreneurs, we've got the venture capitalists or angel investors, and then we have the crowd investors.
Right.
So there's that first dynamic of having the entrepreneur, either the property owners or asset owners, even small companies as well as the VCs, which we're talking about right now.
Right.
But then there's this new crowd of funding that could come from anywhere in the world, which could also be the customers.
Right. Well, and to me, that's what crowdfunding is. So the formula has not changed.
Right.
The technology has changed, the reach has changed, but the formula has not. You have to build relationships with people before they commit to who you are and what you're doing. And Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why.
Yeah.
People care why you're doing what you're doing. There's a very different pitch in me saying, or a very different message being sent when I say, develop alternative keyboards, it's more comfortable to use, do you want to buy one? Versus my goal at my company is to help people keep their jobs. If you have a physical injury or a congenital issue with your hand, carpal tunnel syndrome, cerebral palsy, severe arthritis, whatever it may be, you may not have a job long term. You may never have had a job because of certain conditions.
Right.
This is the kind of keyboard alternative that will enable you to get connected to a digital world at a different level. So why do we do what we do? To help people keep their jobs or get a job for the first time.
Right.
Then people start asking, well, how does that happen? And then you get to what it is and so on and so forth.
It's comfortable. It allows you to type and all the other things. What it does is not as important as why it was created.
That's exactly right. So focus on your why. And then when people understand why you're doing what you're doing and you begin to engage them in conversation, the refinement can begin. Then they really latch on and soon they'll be asking you, where can I buy one?
Right.
Just so happens that we have a crowdfunding campaign that's going to start soon. Buy it through that. Here's a code for you for all your help for an extra discount, whatever it may be. And that's what creates the momentum.
That's phenomenal.
So I don't think the formula will ever change.
Yeah, same process, same way of getting to the heart of what's really going on.
Yep.
The only difference is that in crowdfunding or crowd investing, it's not just you and a VC. It might be a whole network of people who are all sharing this problem who can also come together to make it solved or solution.
So think about it as a continuum. You're as the entrepreneur, you're the driving force. You create this signal, this beacon out to the world. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. You'll have some investors that'll say, actually not even investors at this time, some folks that are business savvy will say, hey, I like what you're sending out. I like why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let me help. And then the money begins to kind of trickle in, and then orders begin to roll in. Then you really understand your customer needs. And once the customers are really happy with the product that they helped develop from the very beginning, they're going to tell other people.
Right.
And that's where the big,
out.
So think of, the waves that start way out in the ocean, they can be tsunami strength by the time they hit shore. And that's the way I see the whole crowdfunding VC thing kind of working.
Awesome.
And if you try to shortcut it, I talked to a VC, they gave me $5 million for most of my company, but we haven't figured out product market fit.
Oh my gosh.
That's a hard road.
Yeah, that's a painful ending.
Yeah, but a lot of entrepreneurs, that's something it happens frequently. So.
Right. So that's one of the major problems, right? It's too quick to money and not fast enough to getting real product market fit and focusing on that.
Well said.
What other problems do you see, if you could almost bullet point them, the things that you see most frequently?
Yeah, the shiny object syndrome is an issue.
Take that note down, shiny object syndrome.
And I have it, not as badly as I did years ago, but it's like as an entrepreneur and as an inventor, it's like, wow, we can do all these things. Mm-hmm. No, you can't. That new shiny object, it's like, ooh, look, another platform for more crowdfunding. I know all the other campaigns didn't work, but man, this platform promises to be something
it's
more
new and shinier. Exactly.
And then you just keep jumping from thing to thing to thing, and that's really what it pulls. Without focus, there's no path forward.
So, getting to the focus point, which is
start with your
real
why.
Product market fit.
So start with your why and know why you're doing what you're doing at a fundamental level. That means the art part of the business side in understanding the market.
So really it's all about that focus solely on the customers. Now, is there any problems with going to that process? So for instance, you might, you've settled in your mind, I'm going to focus on my customer.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get distracted, I'm going to just do one thing. What else would be in that process of going to do that might be a stumbling block?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't like to talk to strangers.
Okay.
I totally get that. You're looking at one of them.
The fear of rejection and all.
Well, it's just weird. It's like, hey, Jake, great to meet you. Thanks for your time today. You know, you get over the...
Thanks for coming in. Here, touch these cereal bowls.
Yeah, and it's like, is this the design that like... It's weird, right?
Yeah.
So what I recommend you do is, again, offline build the relationships, you know, and foster them through LinkedIn, through social media channels, through all these different groups, and then have a pizza party. Right, with 5 or 6 people that really care enough about what you're doing. They're local and they'll come in and say, yeah, I know enough about why you're doing what you're doing to come in and to learn more. And then you say, okay, hey, thanks everybody for coming. There are a pair of cereal bowls in front of you. Flip them over on the piece of cardboard on the table. Pick up those colored crayons, draw the character A in red, put that around one dome, and then color a spot on the other dome. This is the logic. This is where this technology, quote unquote, technology resides today, or how far it's been developed. And it just opens up this conversation. It's like, why red? Oh, is it capital letter, lowercase letter? Yeah. What's the font? All this, and all of a sudden, record it all. Right? You have a really good time. You have a lot of energy interjected into this process. And pretty soon, those folks will say, "Hey, that pizza party was awesome.
Yeah, it'd be
great
fun
hosting it."
Talking to people already. I'm thinking about that. That sounds like we should plan that. I'm about it. Next time you have a party, I'll be there. It sounds great.
I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Because you create the right kind of energy, you create the right kind of flow of information. You try to guide it, but you don't control it.
Right. It's more open.
Yeah. Well, free form gets a little bit crazy because you might not get anything done.
You might have steps, but you don't say where.
Gentle
it goes
guidance, right? And the best thing that you can do is sit back and observe. Right. So have somebody that's just observing and finding where the flow of the best information is and so on.
Right.
So we typically auto-record those things. People know that going in, and I just say I want to capture some thoughts because they're at the speed at which we go. Some of the best thoughts are fleeting if we don't capture them.
Yeah.
And that's how it starts. And then after the pizza party, people would tell their friends who would want to be in the next one.
Yeah.
Or they'd say, you know, I really do have an interest in what you're doing, and I think I can help. Now I'm ready for the cup of coffee. Now they're not a stranger.
Yeah.
So there are a whole bunch of different ways to do that, but it's really what's most comfortable to the entrepreneur and obviously the person that you want the knowledge from.
For sure. Now, are you familiar with design thinking?
I am.
Okay.
That's the Lean Startup methodology is what I teach in class.
Okay.
Design thinking and Lean Startup,
really close.
Well, and they converge nicely as well.
Yeah. So with this process, and for those who are not familiar with design thinking, it's out of like the D School in Stanford.
Well, the Lean Startup was actually started by Eric Ries from Stanford and Steve Blank.
Oh, he was also from... I didn't know that.
Well, that's probably why, one was developed on the art side, one was developed on the engineering side, and that's why they're very similar.
That's
so the art science piece, right? You call it design thinking on one end and Lean Startup on the other, meaning the tactical, more engineering side of your brain. So
I never thought of that, but that's probably it. This is a little epiphany I'm having right here. That's phenomenal. So when you see these two processes, and they do have that kind of gentle guidance, if you will, of moving towards ultimately finding a real problem and solving it.
Yep.
And then through raising capital, could you describe the difference between bootstrapping, in your opinion, bootstrapping, venture capital, and then crowdfunding? And we'll kind of tie this in up at the end, I guess, because we really want to see how this process flows through with all three of them.
Yeah. So bootstrapping to me is, and I had to do it kind of by default. As a graduate student, I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't want to raise a lot of money. I wasn't in a place where money was around.
Right.
So bootstrapping says, figure out the basics of what it is you need to have before you start seeking capital. And what does that mean? Product market fit. If people are wanting your product through the research that you're doing, that's a pretty good sign of at least some initial traction.
Right.
So when do you go to a VC or I have 55 angels in my company today. You talk to a few of them, they talk to a few of their friends, they talk to a few of their friends. So, the 5 or 6 that are on my board know all the other angels that are in my company.
Right.
So that's the ripple effect there.
You're just already a network built.
Built in network, and that's the best way to build it, in my opinion. From angels, you can go to VCs if you really need that next large influx of money. And we approached that. We did have some term sheets, and I said, wait. That's a lot of money. What are we going to be doing with that amount of money? Will it really help us grow quickly? And why are we not leveraging the people that are using our product? Because that's much less expensive. We can retain some of our equity. So let's go down that. Let's try that avenue.
So within that case, just to clarify, like what the entrepreneur is experiencing, they're caught in this little period between having some traction and needing to go to a larger market. And they need that basically wider market, more units to be produced on the front end, which usually costs more money.
Well, that's if it's a physical product, right?
That's true, yeah.
So, but if it's something that's a piece of software, I would argue that you are less likely to want to raise capital.
Right, because you can be developing it on your own.
Yeah. And again, your customer base, you're at the end of it, you're always looking to raise money to do two things: accelerate the company, buy product to fill orders, or to really begin to capture market share.
Right.
But if you can capture market share any other way other than borrowing money to pay back to investors at 5 to 10 times what they put in, because that's the rule of the game.
Yeah.
You say to yourself, how do I leverage my customer base?
Exactly. So
and why would I not incent them for everyone that they sold, or just help them communicate the message that they liked and why they liked the product and are successful in using it to others.
And this is kind of where crowd investing comes in, right? So
That's
you've got the bootstrapping, the VCs, or when it's much heavier lifting as far as having to borrow money. But then if you have the customers and you have the connection and network, getting them involved by saying, hey, you can be a part of this as an investor themselves.
Right.
That's where you're saying like that would be that next step where you can save a little bit of that equity.
Or if you already have a product developed, you just sell it to the folks that you know are interested in the crowdfunding piece of it.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I could talk for like 10 hours. This has been great. And we probably will in the future. But thank you again, Dr. B, for coming out.
Oh, you're very welcome,
Thank you all
Jake.
for tuning in and listening. It's been wonderful. Have a good one.